last years of the 19th century, that human affairs were being watched from the timeless worlds of space. No one could have dreamed we were being scrutinized as someone with a microscope studies creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. Few men even considered the possibility of life on other planets. And yet, across the gulf of space, minds immeasurably superior to ours regarded this Earth with envious eyes. And slowly and surely, they drew their plans against us.
Broadcasting live
from a tiny studio somewhere in North America.
This is Dark Matters Radio Live. And now I give you your host,
the silverback of ufology.
Here's Don Ecker.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And anybody else out there, I guess. You never can tell today. So I want to make sure I'm all inclusive because, of course, I do care. But welcome to another brand new edition of Dark Matters Radio. And Dark Matters Radio, of course, is brought to you courtesy of KGRA. And it's still your contact point to the weirder side of things now and again. Now, today, I mean, can you believe it? Already, it is almost the first week of March 2021 through the hoop. I can't believe it. In a couple of weeks, boys and girls and others, guess what? It's going to be the spring equinox. And tonight, I have a very special show with truly one of my very most favorite people. And you all know him, and you've all loved him because he was the KGRA host of Task Force Griffin. And, of course, I'm talking about Commander Cobra. But he's not Commander Cobra to me. He's my buddy Charlie Deuce. And if you're not sure how that came about, well, I'm going to bring him on, and he can explain it to you. Deuce, how are you?
Well, good evening, Don, as always, or as I should probably start out, Mr. Ecker.
Decker.
Thank you very much.
Damn it, Decker. That's my call sign, Deuce, Decker.
Well, I was going to get to that in a second.
You gave
we
it
were
to
talking
me.
about Charlie Deuce, but I wanted to say Mr. Ecker first so I could get the contractual requirements. I'm just going through the list that you provided me before we got on the show here of points that I had to cover. And also be prepared, please, all for Don's tips on real estate and home financing. We had a mini seminar before we started the show. It's really quite engaging talk. It's great to be with you, Don. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing with your outstanding audience, and I love everybody on KGRA. It's great to return.
Well, I don't want to get all soft and soapy and teary-eyed, Deuce, but the truth is we miss you, buddy. We really miss you.
Thank you very much. And I miss everyone here as well. I remain extremely busy and engaged on the other work. And I've been making the rounds on a couple of shows. Some folks have had me on, been very, very kind to bring me on as a guest. I'm always a little curious when people ask me to come on as a guest because I just don't think I have a lot to offer as a guest. But apparently, I have something that keeps bringing us back, so I'm very happy on that. Very
well. You're a lot of fun. What can I tell you, Deuce? You're a lot of fun, and let's face it. On the times you've been on this show before, we have engaged in what I think has been some sparkling conversation. But, okay, the audience...
Just to close the loop, you wanted me to explain Charlie Deuce. So Commander Cobra, CC, phonetic alphabet, Charlie, Charlie Deuce coming from the number 2. And in Don's world, that's a straight line. For most of us, that is a DNI spiral staircase of kind of an arrangement, but that's how we come up with Charlie Deuce.
That's why I was a sergeant and you were a commander. Okay, so anyway, tonight, when I saw Deuce getting ready to come on the show, waiting for our esteemed producer, Bill Skywatcher, to bring him on, I sent him a quick note. And I said, "Hey, buddy, how you been?" And he got back, "Well, I'm at this really secret site that I can't talk about, but, it seems like the transmissions are good." I think that's what you were trying to say. You said TRON, and you might have said TRONS, I don't know, something like that. But anyway.
The trons are good. The connection is good tonight. The electrons are, I'm in a really strong position here. Gotcha.
So I told him, I said, "Oh, cool, I love secret shit." And then we went silent for about 3 minutes. So actually, in a way, as what Charlie Deuce was describing a moment ago, my expertise in real estate and home financing, I was just telling him, and Skywatcher, I said, "Look," I said, "tonight, even doing this show is kind of a miracle. And even though, everything was planned, set aside, ready to go, the whole 9 yards, for the last 9 months, my beloved bride and I have literally been going through refinance hell, okay? And the outfit that we've been dealing with, we started last year, and they gave us a list of everything they needed. And so we, of course, immediately got it all together. We wanted to get this thing done. We've got some things that we want to do here at the house. Want to have our kitchen refurnished. We want to put take the carpet out of our living room, put in some hardwood floor, that kind of stuff. So my wife has been like a busy bee, and she has been bouncing around here. She's really getting to the point. She's very excited. So to make a long story short, this is what happened. So after we got everything together with them, then weekly it would come in drips and drabs. "Well, we need this. And oh yeah, we need that." So we provided for them. And then the next week, same damn thing. And this went on for several months. And I'll tell you, I am not known for dealing with incompetency very well, all right? So finally, I said, "Okay, Vic, I'm calling this guy up." And I called him up, and he wasn't available. So I left a very nice message. So 2 days went by, and then Vicky gets an email. Not me. Oh, no, not me. Vicky gets one. And he assuages her fears and terror and everything and said, "Well, the person that was supposed to be getting in touch with you, well, they're not here anymore. No reason why they're not here anymore. Incompetency, maybe. I don't know. But we got a new one." Well, the new one didn't get in touch with us either. Now, we got to the point where we finally had an appraisal. Guy came out, did the appraisal for the refinance. Everything seemed like it was good, and he gave us a very good appraisal. Well, weeks once again go on. And about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago, okay, now remember, all the while we're still out here in California, locked down, all that kind of crazy business. You can't go outside your front door practically without wearing a mask. If you listen to our esteemed Governor Newsom. So anyway, we get a call from our refi people. And guess what? Our appraisal ran out. Oh, yeah, it ran out. They can't use it anymore. We had to get another appraisal. Now, I'll tell you, by this time, I'm about ready to pop my top. But they get back to us and they say, "Well, we're going to have the notary come out and see you guys sign all the paperwork on the 5th of March. He'll be there 5 o'clock your time." And when I heard that, I made full circle. I said, sweetie, Vicky, love, did you forget I do a radio show at 5 o'clock? And she smacked her head. And I said, besides, I've got my buddy Charlie Deuce coming on. And oh, God. So she called them up. I didn't want to call them up. I didn't want to have to talk to them, but she called them up. So just as we finished tonight's show, supposedly this guy is going to be there for us to sign the paperwork. And Deuce, that's my tale of woe, buddy.
Well, I've been through that hell a couple of times, and I just I sympathize. I wouldn't wish it on an enemy to refinance. It's to me, it's worse than when you bought the house.
Well, it is what it is. There's not much you can do about it at this point. All the weeping and wailing, what the hell. So anyway, every week I've had people send me notes. Oh, Ecker, I love it when you do a rant. Now, Deuce, would that qualify as a rant tonight?
I think it's a public service announcement. I think you're getting credit in about 4 categories tonight.
Okay. So what can you tell us about what the heck you've been up to since?
Well, as I said, the job that covers the bills here and brings the closure on the receipts is going at a very steady clip. It's busy and it's been good work. COVID has made it an extremely engaging kind of thing because all the normal ways of getting things done are now slightly more complicated. They're just a little bit out of phase. So that's what's been making things demanding and all the associated stuff with travel and trying to figure those things out. So that's been happening. And as I said, I've been great contact with a number of people who have asked me to come on to the shows to talk and to tell them, what kinds of things when I'm not at work in the world that occupies paranormal and all the other related kind of military connections. I've been fortunate, and I try to get to Mac Maloney's Military X-Files a couple times out of the month. Mac always has a open seat and mic for me on his show. And that's been a lot of fun. We've had some laughs there. So it's stayed pretty well. The winter has been, it's been a pretty decent winter. I guess it's a La Nina this year. So we're going through a very, very tough cold snap right now. I'm sure Skywatcher's feeling the same kind of goodness because him and I are about the same latitude. It's been a little bit pressing the last 10 days or so. But it's been a fairly decent winter overall. I measure success in winter here by how much of the wood that I put up all summer and fall. And we went to only about half. So that's pretty good for us.
Well, I realize that I'm not going to get any sympathy from you for what I'm about to say.
I know it's been an extremely tough winter for you guys out there. I heard suntan lotion ran low at one point because of COVID-1984, and I feel bad for you. I understand.
Yeah, I was going to say your sympathy would probably fall midway between shit and syphilis in the dictionary. But a few days ago, we had kind of a cold snap. Okay, we had a little moisture fall from the sky, and it was only in the 50s. But we kind of made up for it today with a high of 76, and I'm only praying it gets better from there. But that's me. Okay, so what are you gonna do?
As long as you are able to make way, sir. If you. What did the nuns used to tell us? God will not put in your path nothing that you can't handle. So it sounds like you're getting everything you're supposed to be being tested.
Oh,
with.
I can only hope. Hey, I wanted to get into a little of the odd stuff. Here we are, first week of March. By the end of June, we're supposed to have that document dump coming from the DOD concerning UFOs. I am fully expecting to be totally snowed under with useless data and information, obscuring whatever gems or nuggets might be buried in that. But have you been keeping up with that? Do you have any thoughts along those lines?
There's an interesting, and it ties into I have about 5 or 6 things on the chat sheet tonight on my kneeboard card for the proverbial show notes here that I wanted to cover. I want to remind everybody that John Burroughs' book has been out for a bit now, and I'm sure most of the audience has read it, but this is the weaponization of an unidentified aerial phenomenon, the Rendlesham Forest UAP incident 40 years later. John and James Worrow, John Burroughs and James Worrow did a phenomenally good job in this book. It is really packed with a lot of important information, a lot of important reflection, and I would say really good scholarship, as well as really looking back at what went on there. And it really covered a lot of materials that John has talked about over the last probably decade or so, and his thankfully triumphant ability to get proper medical care and get the Veterans Department, VA, to recognize his condition as disabling and get him proper care. So that was it's a great book, and it kind of ties in to what your question is put to me, because you talked about what's going to come, and you're somewhat prepared to be underwhelmed. And I think that's fair. I think we always should be somewhat prepared to be underwhelmed or have the BS meter up pretty high, because there just seems to be a lot of conflicting vectors that are going on these days with information as it comes out. To me, I find it crazy, the kinds of things that have come out as of late concerning advanced drive systems, how the Navy, how the Air Force is going to handle UFO encounters with personnel, the Army having connection with Academy of the Stars for advanced technology considerations. This has all been like preparing a battlefield. I mean, it should be reminiscent to you because the kind of, especially the kind of work you were doing in Vietnam, the kind of stuff that's going on. And there's a lot of misdirection that's constant. That's like a constant carrier wave that we're facing. But there's a couple things that are starting to break out. And one that I think is really interesting is there's a lot of what I call the new media or alternate media that has locked onto this and zeroes in pretty hard. Folks like the War Zone, even the Intercept, folks that really, I think, take a very unique cut at this. They have put out some very good journalistic, good investigative reports on things that have gone on, and they've used the Freedom of Information Act in a way that has really refreshed that. So there's a lot of information out there. And as I've said in the past, I think a lot of that information has been accompanied by a template of fluff, of packing that goes around it to overwhelm the average or even not so average person who's trying to keep track of this. Now, I can't tell you, but I suspect that search engines and ways that we look into these things are greatly controlled. So I think that is definitely something that we're up against.
Well, let me interject something here very quickly. This morning, I was when I turned on my computer system, I was doing what I normally do. There's several places that I like to go to. I like to check. I like to see what is brewing on the surface, okay? And I came across a link for a news story that I said, oh, I got to check this out. Now, by the way, I just sent the link to Skywatcher, Skywatcher can put it in the chat lounge, and then everybody there will know what I'm talking about. But it's from a site called the Debrief, okay? And this is the headline: Mysterious new warp drive patent surfaces online. Background: how to bend space-time with a warp drive. Now, I guess you can patent anything. You could probably, if you find out a way to bottle it, you could probably patent chicken farts, okay? I don't know what you do with them, but you could patent them. But this I found was very interesting. And apparently, we may have more going on in the background, Deuce, than we've been led to believe. What do you think about that?
I agree. I think that is a very true statement and conclusion that you've drawn. It's much like the fusion reactor that was talked about, I guess, 2-3 months ago, and a couple other technologies that under a Navy contract, Navy patent that was put through. And the official line is, look, we know that other countries are working on this. If this technology is developed, if we come up with a certain brand of it, we want to have patent protection for it. I find that on the face of it, okay. Mrs. Cobra actually holds a patent for a piece of furniture that she created and made a few years ago. So I understand that process. And I understand the protections that it's supposed to apply. But I suspect that there's another reason for this, and I'm not sure if it is. Let me rephrase that. I am pretty sure that it's a way of maybe flashing the sword, or maybe putting the sign out that we're working in a particular area. We're in an area where we're going to make some of our technology or our efforts known. For a number of reasons. We could possibly be doing it to show that we're ahead. We could be doing it to show that we want other countries to jump in with that technology. And it could be a fairly good ruse. You get people to spend treasure in investigating something that you don't think is going to work. So I think it could be all three of those things happening at the same time. I think this has been going on for a long, long time. I think we've had the ability with technology since probably the 30s in certain areas, and the refinements have come along. And now we're making it more public. Is ultimately this something that we're preparing the masses for the big reveal? That could be on the table as well, not. But I think that you are absolutely spot on correct that we have more going on, and now we have it from the blackboard, whiteboard to maybe more operative, or at least very refined test articles that we're dealing with. Well,
for whatever it's worth, I have been of the suspicion for quite a while that the United States of America, Deuce, has a secret space fleet. I do not know. I do not have any confirmation on how enabled they might be, but I think we have one. I think they are currently using an advanced technology. I keep going back to the late 1990s when Ben Rich of the Skunk Works at Lockheed, in an almost throwaway remark, told a reporter that we have the technology to take ET home. I don't know if he, in fact, was blowing smoke at this guy or whether that is true, but I have had my suspicions. Do you fall down on that also?
I agree. I think Ben Rich is not someone that can be dismissed for hyperbole or joshing it along for a good time. When we talk secret space program, it goes into two areas. It goes into we have contact with an alien or alien races, extraterrestrial alien races, and that we are reverse engineered in agreement using capabilities, and we are operating all through the solar system and going forward. And I've seen and heard a number of people, guests on my former show that believed that this was true, and presented, some evidence and how they came up with those conclusions. I'm not sold on that yet. I don't dismiss it, but I'm not sold on it. But I do believe,
I of course
since the 50s, I was going to say, since the 50s, I know that we've been operating in the realm of space, and we've been operating it in a secret manner for a long time. And it can be something as benign as just what we were doing with satellites, to manned reconnaissance operations and aircraft that we've been using. I think when you look at certain events that go into completely just miraculously fall as a success for us or the allies or the good guys, I think that lends a lot of credibility to a very active space program. And remember, we neutralized space by treaty that said it wasn't supposed to be a military weaponized area. And I think everybody immediately is engaged in that.
Yes. Okay. Well, guess what, Deuce? We are at the first break.
Okay, we're docking at the space station, so we have to take a break.
That's correct. So we're going to take that break, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, Commander Cobra, formerly of Task Force Griffin, right here on KGRA. This is going to promise to be a very, very informative program tonight. Stick around because, hey, we got a bunch coming. And I don't think you're going to want to miss it. We'll be back.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com. Or to speak with a trained consultant. Give Angioprim a call at 954-882-7221. That's 954-882-7221.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied, but you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with, you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
Permanent industrial glue impossible to remove? Not anymore, because Handyman Formula by D-Bond is a patented chemical adhesive remover. It's used in the building and home maintenance industry, but now it's available for your home use, for your DIY projects. Unglue stickers, silicone rubber, labels, price tags, flex tape, weather stripping, carpet glue, wood glue, liquid nails, even 3M 5200. And It dissolves graffiti. Yeah, graffiti. Handyman Formula by D-Bond works, and it's safe to use on most surfaces. No need to call a professional. Don't get out the pliers and blowtorch. Just apply a little Handyman Formula by D-Bond and wait 90 seconds, then quickly and easily pull the items apart. Get unstuck. Visit dbondhandymanformula.com. That's dbondhandymanformula.com or call 561-575-4200. Handyman Formula by D-Bond.
We are the contact for alternative research topics. The Planet, KGRAradio.com.
And we are back with my guest, Commander Cobra, known very affectionately by me as Charlie Deuce. Deuce, we were talking about the possibility or probability that our government has some type of secret space program with very likely advanced technology that we are not privy to. Now, you know, a lot of people may hear that and think, oh, my heaven, that's woo-woo, okay? That's really crazy. But you know what I keep thinking back to? I used to tune in very frequently to the feed from the ISS, the International Space Station. And you know what I observed on a number of occasions? Something inexplicable entering the camera frame, and suddenly the signal would be lost.
Or the hand of the astronaut that is outside the space station, hand would come over the camera lens.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. Now, that could be one of two things. Let's be real. It's either E.T. coming in for another visit, or it's something of ours flying around up there. What do you think about that?
Don, I'd say it's probably 70-30. 70 that it's ours, 30 that it's something else. But here's an interesting point that I want to bring about this when you say this. The International Space Station is international. We have many nations represented on that space station at any given time. But primarily, U.S. and Russian cosmonauts are working the station with the other guest nations, other astronauts that are participating. So you're not hiding that from anybody on the planet. You're not hiding anybody who's involved with the space station. So either one of those two capabilities has an intriguing discussion point all on its own. If these things are approaching, and I think that there is credible evidence, indicators that that's happening, it begs the question, okay, how do we agree upon this on nations of the world? You know, for either case, for either situation, how did we come up with that agreement? When we can't agree on, setting the price of anything down on the surface of the planet. So I think it's a very intriguing situation. I go back to telling you, I think the possibilities are both. I tend to lean to it is earthbound technology. What the source of that is, I can't give you a good answer. I think that some of the breakthroughs are so incredible that it really does lead to some kind of technology transfer, either from recovered materials, back engineered, or from a exchange program, so to speak, a intergalactic exchange program, some kind of contact that's either benevolent or not. And I think this all drives towards a mounting and a increasing point that we break out. But I'll go back, and I do want to make this mention because Lib's not in the chat room. He is recovering. He's had some health issues. I've been talking to him and his sister. He's doing much better. He's had some very tough medical issues that he's battling. For most of the people that are listening to this show, that listen to KGRA and other stations like it, we really don't need proof to guarantee to shore up what we believe, what we know. We want it because we're human beings, and we want to have certain level of vindication. A certain level of proof would lend credibility, and maybe drive the rest of the population to shed off some of the foolishness that we engage in, and look to something better than ourselves, bigger than ourselves. That's what I hope for. That's what I hope happens sooner than later.
Well, you mentioned something a few minutes ago, the To the Stars Academy. You mentioned that in passing. And for those people that may not know what that is or what it was a group, an organization brought together by a rock and roll guy, of all people, from Blink 184. I think it was Blink 184. And, as far as I'm concerned, Deuce, let me be a little retro here. There haven't been any real rock and roll bands since the Doors, okay, or Jimi Hendrix. But be that as it may, he brought together a number of people that were, and I got to tell you, man, when I found out who was involved in this, I gasped for air. Okay, a former Undersecretary of State dealing with intelligence, a guy from the Pentagon that was, by all accounts, involved in some covert operations and other things, an engineer from the Lockheed Skunk Works, okay? And if you're interested in this topic, then you're going to know what that is. A scientist that had been working with the Central Intelligence Agency. And all these guys were together, and there were 2 seasons of a television show called Unidentified, run on the History Channel.
Right.
Now, because of what I do and what I've done for decades, I made sure that I got every damned bloody episode of that. And I watched it with great interest. And believe me, I had my BS detector all tuned up, because as long as I've been in this field, that BS detector has served me for the most part pretty well. And I got to say, I was for the most part, impressed, very impressed. Now, over the decades, and I've been at this for over 3 decades, I've dealt with everybody in this damned field over the years. People at the Pentagon, people at NASA, the professional skeptic class, and most of them have given me a wide berth. My name is the same as a profanity-laced tirade in some quarters, okay? That's just what I've managed to accomplish in all those years. And I have never in my entire career dealing with this ever encountered anybody from the rarefied atmosphere that one of those guys came from, Chris Mellon, an Undersecretary of State Intelligence, okay? Now, this guy was involved with the Army, the DIA, all those things, okay, that should have a pretty firm handle, if we're to believe what we're told, on what this phenomena is all about. And another one of those guys, a guy by the name of Luis Elizondo, okay, who was basically the point man for this entire enterprise. Now, a number of months back, I finally made contact with Elizondo. We had a number of private conversations. There's some that I can talk about. Some of what we discussed I can talk about, some I can't. But to basically just cut it to the bone, I was curious in a couple of areas. Because, number one, every episode of that series had an underlying drumbeat. And that underlying drumbeat was a potential threat they stressed that exclusively, Deuce. They stressed that exclusively. So I put on my detective hat, okay? And I started thinking about that. And finally, I came to the conclusion that this could only mean one of a couple of things. Number one, somewhere up that pipeline, someone or some bodies, plural, okay, have an inkling that something is coming down the pike that can't be denied. Now, before I go any further, let me say this, that in all those years I've been involved in this, and I've dealt with literally people all over the globe, I have been told repeatedly, okay, that there are more than one ET civilization coming to Earth. There may be as many as 6 or 7. Now, if I were to stop there and go into some of my thinking on that, that would take me away from what I want to get to. Why would 6 or 7 or more different species be coming to planet Earth? And we could speculate all night. But with that being said, I was told by more than one people or persons that several of those civilizations are very benign and very, they're very supportive of us, Homo sapiens sapien. There are a couple of more civilizations that are, well, I guess maybe indifferent. But, and this is the part that I want to get to, there is one civilization, I was told, that just has nothing but enmity for the human race. Now, why would that be? I don't know. I could speculate a little bit, but I don't know. Now, when I talked to Elizondo, see, this is why I have to...
Call from Armenian Arm.
This is why I have to, and I don't always remember to plug the phone.
Checklist,
but,
Don.
Yes. So anyway, when I talked to Elizondo, I asked him specifically, and Deuce, you know me well enough to know that I can be fairly direct, right? I said, what is the deal on this threat? This constant acknowledgement that it's a potential threat. And let me just cut to the chase. He talked basically around that. Okay? He talked around it. Now, the other possibility that I thought about, if I'm all wet about them being aware of some threat coming down the road, would be a dog and pony show. Disinformation. Could it be disinformation coming from a high government source? And then we would have to speculate on why. What would the purpose of the disinformation be? And, buddy, I'm going to turn it over to you because I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, I've heard nothing to the extensive level that you have experienced and spoke about in the past, to the various extraterrestrial races and the orientation or their desires for positive, neutral, or negative engagement. I will say that off the cuff, just a little bit offline, it does match up though very well with a lot of mythology, a lot of cultural legends that we have as a people on this planet. Benevolent beings that have incredible skills, evildoers. It fits well into the recorded histories and testimonies of people. So I think there's some record to date that adds that up. Now, when we get into areas of, why are they being projected as negative? it leads me back to we're our own worst enemy. We're our own worst problem is ourselves. And what I mean by that is I feel we have the struggle that we're up against now is we have a group of self-appointed people, sometimes referred to as elites, who feel that they have the best handle on how these things need to be released, transmitted, opened up, talked about, and it may have very good reasons. It could be much like what we talked about. It could be for very positive reasons, trying to protect, trying to insulate us with fears that people quote unquote can't handle it and all those things. I mean, we've had the famous RAND studies of the 60s that things would topple. We've talked about it on your show and my show when you've been on, where it's just going to lead to massive upheaval. Well, personally, I think we're there, and I think the other part, which has validity, is that some of this group, some of the self-appointed betters, enjoy the fact that they have the inside track, the information, which is power. It's control. It exerts some kind of influence. It makes them successful, rich, whatever mark of success that you want out of that. So I think those two things. I think those two things are part and parcel of us as people, and possibly what is happening on the engagement and the level we're going with. I remember one of the guests I had, and I think we actually spoke about it one time on your show earlier, where the World War II, the Nazis had recovered technology, that they had an engagement with extraterrestrials, and that's where they got some of their breakthroughs in technology. And I always asked the question, and they said, well, how could anybody possibly be involved? How can any superior entity not look at the face of that and go, this is a group of cats we want nothing to do with? These people are not, they're not functioning on full brain power. There's something, warped with the approach that they have. But if you're an evildoer, if you're someone who's looking for, some kind of ultimate control here, where it's for whatever reason, that may not be a bad team up to find folks like that, to have that go forward with. So I can't give you a good answer beyond my impressions that gone forward. I'm going to throw into the chat room 3 sources of information. The first one is skyshipsovercashers.com. It's Mary Joyce's website, and I think she has some of the most interesting, groundbreaking, or the most interesting current stuff that's breaking out. And she is extremely open to almost any kind of, I would say, most current, most no filters whatsoever understanding. The other one I'll put into the website, because I saw a couple of questions come in, is Behind the Black. Robert Zimmerman has been on the show a number of times. He has a very truth-based, and he has spent countless times looking at just the available data, the masses of data that comes out on Mars, the pictures that are on Mars.
Okay,
and,
hold on there,
yep.
Deuce. Hold on a second, because I want to, before you go any further with Mars, there's something I want to say, and I'm going to read that question then, okay?
Sure.
Did you have anything else?
Yeah, the other one that I'm going to throw out there is Black Horizon, Steve Douglas. Steve is one of those guys who has been chasing advanced technology, black programs. He does it from all open sources. He has a kind of a mini command center where he monitors radio traffic all the time. He and documents on his website. He doesn't do a daily documentation, but he just caught the radio discussion that went on with the American Airlines flight crew about a week ago, 10 days ago, flying over I believe the southwest corner of New Mexico, when they had one of these cylinders fly by them at altitude. The cylinder that seems to have shown up in some of the Academy of the Stars release, a cylinder type device clip that I had seen earlier on, that I had discussed in a few of the shows here on KGRA in the past, which I was looking at it at a kind of a seminar because of the fact that they were able to catch this thing. It wasn't because it was an unusual thing. It was discussed as, look at the great work that the operator on the sensor system was able to capture this, and I am very sure that is a type of UAS or possibly manned technology that's flying. What I'm surprised is that it's flying during the day. I'm surprised that it's flying in an area where it could be seen like that, although that seems to be fairly chance encounter for that part of the world. That's even though those routes are kind of known, it doesn't. It surprises me that it does on one hand. On the other, maybe we're getting to the point where we want word to come out. If the perception is that the United States maybe is on its back heels, doesn't have the projection, the capabilities that it once did, these kinds of releases of information, sightings, stuff like that, can be a way of, saber rattling without actually rattling a saber. That you can throw off some. It can be a show of force, whether you don't have to give away too much.
Okay.
So I'll put those three into the chat for everyone.
Yeah, sure. Now, I got a question from one of our chat lounge users, Lauren. Okay, I wanted to make sure I could read it. Now, before I go to the question, a little over a week ago, I was invited to come on as a panelist on Dick Hoagland's show, The Other Side of Midnight. And there were two other folks on there. One is Stephen Bassett, who's been at the forefront of the disclosure movement for a very long time, years. And the other fellow I was not familiar with, and I'm not sure now about the correct pronunciation of his name, so I'm not even going to mention that. But of course, Perseverance landing on Mars was the big thing. And I did a little research beforehand, and I talked to a very esteemed Mars scientist, and who happens to have the added benefit of being a close personal friend of mine, Dr. John Brandenburg. Brandenburg is the fellow that discovered, beyond any doubt, that sometime in Mars past, there were at least two huge nuclear devices detonated over Mars. Okay. Now, that's a whole nother topic, but he discovered the isotopes that prove that they were hydrogen bomb weapons that were detonated there. Now, as we were talking, I discovered that a former honcho from NASA had gone public with the fact that life-bearing organic compounds have been discovered all over Mars. And one of the things that Hoagland was claiming was that Perseverance landed in the midst of a bunch of extraterrestrial on Mars ruins. Now, I didn't look extensively, but I looked. There was nothing there that I could have definitively said, my God, that looks like it's ancient ruins. I didn't see that, but that's what he claimed. Now, let me read Lauren's question. Question, does Commander Cobra have any thoughts on the claim that Perseverance landed in the middle of a bunch of ruins on Mars? Also, Some are thinking that disclosure of life on Mars is coming soon because if we, the USA, don't disclose it, the Chinese will once their mission lands on Mars, and we don't want to be beaten to the punch. Do you have any thoughts? And you know what? I'm just looking at the clock, Deuce. We have about roughly a minute and a half or so before we got to go to break. Would you prefer to answer that when we come back on the other side?
Well, we can jump into it. I will say that I think we are in an interesting tug and pull situation with the communist Chinese People's Republic. I think they call themselves a republic. I can't keep up with all these crazy kids out there with their mashing of words. And I, as much as I would love to believe that we are looking at the remnants of that on the surface of Mars, I'm not convinced. But we'll grab the rest of it when we come back on the other side. How's that for a little chaser to the next?
That is well. That's why you hosted a highly regarded show on KGRA, Deuce. You handled that expertly. What more can I say?
Well, I'm here to help.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. We're gonna go to break maybe roughly 25, 30 seconds early. That means we can come back early. And when we do, more with Commander Cobra of Task Force Griffin, the esteemed show that once upon a time graced KGRA. And this is Dark Matters Radio. We'll be back.
A birthday without her mom. An anniversary without her husband. Her wedding day without her dad. These are the days when military families feel it most of all. The loss of their soldier, their sailor, their airman, their Marine, their Coast Guardsmen. Families never forget their loved ones lost to war or illness or suicide. Families never forget, and neither do we. We are TAPS, the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors. We provide resources, support, and comfort to heal the hearts and meet the needs of grieving military families, all at no cost to them. Your generosity can make an enormous difference in the lives of the families of our fallen military heroes. Our military families need to know they are not alone and they are not forgotten. Show them your support at TAPS.org.
Please listen. Now is not the time to fear. When your immune system is strong, shields up. You have very little worries. If your immune system is compromised, you're susceptible to all viruses. I say shields up and no fear. Try Heart Love from GetTheTea.com. Heart Love has a special ingredient called allicin. It comes from the healing part of the garlic plant. No garlic breath. No garlic leaking out your pores, just pure immune-building ingredients that gets your shields up. Heart Love is a unique blend of herbs that loves to build you up. Google garlic and know the benefits. One Heart Love pill is equal to 20 cloves of garlic. 20 cloves! Shields up. You've heard of our Life Change Cleansing Tea at GetTheTea.com. Now try Heart Love. And by the way, take your blood pressure and watch weekly what happens. So here's how to purchase. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com and build your shields. That's GetTheTea.com. Mention Ray in the coupon code and hit apply and receive free shipping.
Welcome to the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. Here you'll find great new content, including the KGRA Classics, great shows from our archives. You'll be able to see the show times and information so you can see what show is currently on air. The on-air live button. So just go to this section and you'll be able to hear the show live with exceptional sound quality. We also have the Vault section. Make sure to subscribe to get access to great content and special features. We have the make content for our latest news and events, so make sure to sign up and you can be part of our forum. So make sure to check out the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. We look forward to seeing you there, and we hope that you enjoy the new website.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
And we are back with my very special guest, and I also consider him, even though we've never met face-to-face, a close personal friend, Commander Cobra. Cobra, you were saying before we had to go to the top of the hour break. Was that too far long ago, or?
Oh no. I thought there was going to be a little more run up there, so I was waiting for the invite, and I was
taking you right to the edge of the cliff.
I was also contemplating the remark you made off air that I miss Skywatcher more than I miss you on there. So I thought I'd throw that into the chat room, a little catnip for the participants in the chat room. Who do I miss more, Skywatcher or Decker? The world may never know the true answer to that question, because I'd be like trying to split the baby. I can't. Which child do I love more? Couldn't give you an answer. Now, I have been intrigued for years with the possibilities of the remnants of an advanced civilization. Dr. Brandenburg was on my show where he explained his theories of what occurred there with kind of a nuclear holocaust of what we would say biblical proportions. One of the things that I've had some difficulty trying to square that is that it's not well replicated. You can't get a second source that seems to find the what looks like the giant face of a carved figure. That things that are there don't seem to show up. Now, I want to be fair here, because if you're controlling information, there are parts of the globe that you can't easily find and see, unless, sadly, if you're the Iranians and you're using commercial satellites to target our bases in Iraq, our encampments in Iraq for attacks. So we don't have the ability to independently grab all the information. We can't even do it on the planet that we're residing on. So I don't want to. I hate to rule anything out. I just haven't been convinced that things that appear and the shadows that come up. To the greater issue, are we in a competition with the CCP for dominance of information and dominance in space? Yes, there's no doubt about that. But I think an interesting edge, and that's the reason why I put in Behind the Black as a website to take a look at to the chat room, and for those that are listening to the show. The reason I put that in there is because Mr. Zimmerman spends a lot of time looking at the very detailed pictures that are there, and he has spent a great deal of time over the last year being a real champion of the capitalization or the commercial enterprise that is occurring in space. And I think that is what's going to provide the greatest edge. I think someone like, the things that are going on with Tesla, the space company, not the prominent scientist and engineer, are exciting. I think that they are pointing to how we're going to do that. I think there's a number of people that, if you had a pretty high possibility, a pretty high percentage of surviving, I think there's a lot of people that are going to be willing to try to take a one-way trip to Mars, a one-way trip to be there, to explore, to establish. I think that is what's going to really change it, and I don't think the system of a centralized, controlled, government-run operation gets you there. I don't think it happens. And I think it really goes back to the absolute incredible times that we lived in the 60s to the early 70s that allowed us to do what we did getting to the moon. And I've said this many times before. We couldn't do it again today. We would not be able to mitigate the risk to an acceptable level to say, okay, we're going to take this chance because it's that important to do. We just don't have that same spirit right now. I'm sure it'll come back. I'm sure it'll return.
Currently, I would have to say that anybody that would take a trip to Mars now would be a pure suicide mission. Okay. Elton John said it best back in the 70s. Mars is no place to raise your kids. There is no, there's, as far as we are concerned, no atmosphere. You can't breathe the atmosphere of Mars. It's beastly cold. Okay. Sometimes below 200 degrees Fahrenheit, below zero. It is radiation rich. Okay, there's nothing to block the solar radiation. It would be tough to resupply. Looking at it from a logistical standpoint, I just see too many negatives at this point with our current technology. I don't know about you, but I sure wouldn't volunteer to go there.
Well, I think to make that kind of a run, I think what you are seeing is you would put a number of support vehicles onto the surface, and you would run a one-way trip with maybe possible relief a couple years down the road or a year down the road for people to make that attempt. You're going to have to live in structures. It's very similar, and it is a basis that NASA has used for study for decades now. The activities that occur down in Antarctica, because it takes a huge level of external support to survive and operate there. You have to have, you have the initial structures, which is what allowed people to make certain periods, and then we were able to put structures onto the ice floe, onto the ice cap, especially at the South Pole Station, and then you have to sustain it by bringing everything in and bringing a great amount of excess trash, for lack of a better term, off. So I think that the model exists. I think that. Yeah,
but it doesn't take 6 to 9 months to get to Antarctica. Okay, basically you can get there by ship in a couple of weeks. By aircraft, hours or a day or so, you can get there. And Mars, we're talking about something entirely different.
But I think that what we're talking about is a difference in scale. And we're talking about when there were discussions in the late 50s, early 60s, when landing successfully on the moon, there were people that volunteered, knowing a one-way trip just to plant the flag, because it was that important. I don't think that kind of patriotic zeal probably exists now for something to Mars. But I think we are rapidly approaching, because of all the different entities that are engaged in trying to make a successful commercial application, a profit in space motive to go forward with it, that we may do it. And if you look at how the American West was settled, I think it's another example of how that's going to work. And I think that it's managing the scale and are people willing to take the chance. And I think there's a lot of people that will be willing to take that chance.
Well, for what it's worth, I personally think there is life on Mars. Of course, not sentient life, at least not native sentient life. But I do believe that there is primitive, simple life forms and water. I probably told you this in the past, Deuce, but back in the very, very early part of the new century, my then buddy, friend, co-host, Dwight Schultz, and I were doing a version of this program. We were doing it on satellite radio. And he had just down the block from him a neighbor who happened to be a scientist at JPL. And it was about, oh boy, I'm not exactly sure. Might have been 2002, 2003, when this neighbor told him that JPL had discovered liquid water on Mars. Okay, liquid water.
Right.
Not ice. And I was excited. I thought, good Lord, this is big news. When are they going to announce it? Well, you know what? They didn't. For years, they did not announce that they had discovered water there. And I got to tell you, I could never figure that out simply because, look, every time back in those days that the Congress went on a budget slash spree, one of the first places they would go to would be NASA. And here was JPL claiming they discovered liquid water, and they sat on it for years. And I thought, my God, you know, what better way to get an increase in your funding than to make an announcement like that? It seemed counterproductive to me.
Well, I have had a somewhat of a look inside the magic kingdom of budget and what's public and what's not. What is under black funding or other funds, the transfer of funds that go back and forth. So the political shell game that's played with cutting money from one and it's going to something else doesn't necessarily line up with the reality of how things go forward. Yep, there are times when people have their jobs are cut or things happen with that. I'm not saying that doesn't occur, but the funding always exists. What is done officially, what is done not in the public view, is all part of what I consider the problem that we're facing. We as a civilization, starting as a country, starting as a group of people, are not united in this. And I think it's very convenient to keep people in groups and continue to subdivide them because it allows those that do hold the reins the ability to control the discussion, the arguments and the discoveries and what goes forward. I'm not pleased by this, but it's the conclusion I've drawn watching what's going on and seeing how things have rolled together and come together as of late. But I'm not surprised that things such as the announcement, which should be earth-shattering, because too many people stand around and try to figure every angle and just will not trust people. They will not trust people to make the conclusion of we're conditioned to believe that if it's not properly packaged and presented, people are going to panic. That's one part of it. And the other part is, I know something, you don't. I have the upper hand. And then ultimately, I always call this the X-Files portion of it. Is there an active program where we are engaged in some kind of contact or some kind of agreement where those of us that aren't privy to it are fodder for the exchange of ideas and technologies and capabilities? I think all of those things have a certain amount of gravity that we have to deal with when we talk about this. Well,
also, there's always the possibility of something happening out of the blue. I call it the oh shit moment, kind of like 9/11 was. Do you remember what was going on then? There were tremendous upheaval and screaming and crying and gnashing of teeth over the then election between George W. Bush and Al Gore. Okay, the hanging chads. And
right.
Do you remember how everybody was tied up in knots over that? And then suddenly, out of the blue, I wake up at 7:30 in the morning to a telephone call, once again from my friend Dwight Schultz. And he said, "My God, are you watching TV?" And I had no clue what he was talking about. And I crawled out of bed and I went out and turned on the television, and then bingo, the universe changed irrevocably forever.
Well, there's one other thing, Don, I always like to bring up when we bring, well, two pieces I need to bring up. One is I always like to remind everyone that Mrs. Cobra was stationed in New York City on 9/11 and was on duty that day. She was right at the front lines for that get together. The other one is this: the night before September 10th, there was a discussion, a release of information at the Pentagon with an incredible sum of money that had no longer being accounted for, that was missing, that couldn't be accounted for. Folks can search engine that baby up and read all about that, what's available on there, what little may still be online about it. And I only bring that in there that always appeared to me to be just one of those things. I don't think that the two are necessarily connected. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that every now and then we like to try to square the books where a bunch of money has gone and we just don't know where it's at. And what's that line that was very famous during the days of the Soviets? 10, 20 people being killed is a tragedy. 1 million people dying is a statistic. It seems to be the same way that goes on with large sums of money. When we get
if I had
sums
to
of money
guess
that we
about
can't
the
connect.
money, that was fed. If this is my speculation, okay, pure speculation, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you, I am dragging this out of thin air, but it would probably not be far off the mark if that ended up going to the secret space program.
Don, I don't disagree. There's just has to be ways that you try to write the little marginal note. Where did this money go? We've lost track of it. Next, please. And then the next thing you know, we are now engaged in a major global conflict of what we consider limited war, but a major expenditure, and that provides an immeasurable amount of cover for a bunch of activities and a bunch of budgetary things that go forward.
Well, in World War II, Korea, and basically World War I, we did not have, for the most part, any enemy activity that happened on CONUS, the
Correct.
continental United States. But with this war on terrorism, we have had. Okay? And Deuce, as a former police officer and as a former proud member of the United States Armed Forces, I got to tell you, I was sickened to my very essence over how the then administration handled these activities and how they were dismissed. Oh, that wasn't terrorism. That was workplace violence. I wanted to scream.
Sure. Absolutely.
As a matter of fact, I may have screamed. I think my wife threw a coffee cup at me at one point, but yeah. Oh golly. That's the way it is. I got another question for you, also from Lauren. And this is actually kind of in my bailiwick. I was tickled to see this, and I'm going to be anxious because you, my friend, are a veteran of Antarctica. Yes?
Yes.
Yes, you
3
are.
deployments there.
Well, that would qualify. So this is Lauren's question. With Commander Cobra's experience in Antarctica, you see, that was my first clue, Deuce. What are Commander Cobra's thoughts about Antarctica and secret bases that are supposedly there? Also, does Commander Cobra have any thoughts about, and this is the part that I got excited on, ancient civilizations being revealed as icebergs break off and the ice sheets melt?
Okay, so there's a couple parts there, and we're going to have to subdivide a few other pieces out. The ice sheet and the breaking of icebergs coming off Antarctica, although is occurring, there's actually ice building up, and it goes in cycles. As I've told many people, I do not dismiss climate change. I think the climate is constantly changing. I do disagree with some of the purported science that is behind man-induced climate change. I'm not dismissing it. I don't think we're very good stewards of the planet at all when it comes to that aspect, but I'm not really convinced that it is a one-for-one direct relationship as portended, and especially when you try to examine what I will say so-called science of it. If you don't agree with it, it turns into a shouting match, and you're said, well, obviously you don't know what you're talking about.
No, so, you forgot. You're also called a Nazi.
Yes. Well, it's funny because you bring that up, because obviously there's a long discussion of alien Nazi forces having bases and activity in Antarctica. And I'm trying not to be cagey in how I give this answer. I did not personally see anything on all the time that I was there, or heard anything that occurred when I was there, that would lead me to believe there is an extensive, or was an extensive, underground base. Doesn't mean it couldn't exist. I will say this. The continent is very, very vast. It is extremely foreboding if you're not well prepared to work and deal there and operate there. So if you have that ability, you can get away with a pretty good hide and seek. You could do that, no doubt. And there is incredible archaeological, but not in a human anthropological aspect, but in petrified wood and other things from, I believe, Gondwaland, if I'm saying that correct. Didn't spend very much time in the geology sciences. I was more on the math engineering side. But there was a lot of interesting parts, remnants that were left over. Petrified wood can be seen in Antarctica, and there's a lot of meteor materials that have landed in the ice and are recovered there. I was very fortunate to participate mainly as the pickup truck that would take scientists to these locations to do some of this work, and they would, it was incredible to see firsthand some of this activity going on, and ice coring that went on in Antarctica and then up in the Arctic as well. So is it possible? Yes. Did I have any even inkling of it going on? No, I never had seen it going on, and I don't doubt the Nazi presence. There was overflights where they would drop markers down and claim large swaths of land. But Antarctica does have a certain air of mystery on it, how everyone seems to play by the treaty rules to a very great extent. Chile and Argentina lay claims to Antarctica. They were at one point, I believe it was Argentina, would fly pregnant women to their base to give birth on Antarctica, the strip of Antarctica that comes very close to Argentina, the tip of South America. so that they could produce birth certificates to further lay the claim of sovereign territory that goes back and forth. There is most likely a large amount of precious and rare earth minerals that are available there, but there's also in some places 9,000 feet of ice that cover the surface. There is a landmass, obviously, in Antarctica. That's the great difference between the Arctic and Antarctic at the polar cap, and it cyclically goes through, a buildup and shedding off that. So when you see large pieces of ice come off the continent and enter the water, that is a fairly natural process that's occurring as it moves across the whole continent itself.
Well, this whole question of climate change, to me, Deuce, is rather ridiculous because the planet Earth is approximately 4.5 billion with a B years old, roughly, okay, in that time frame. And there's been climate change from the beginning, okay? It's an ongoing process. It's 24/7. 4.5 billion times. Okay, it's just part of nature. Now,
well,
would you not? And let me throw something else in there. Would you not also state that there have been tremendous, many sightings of inexplicable, unidentified phenomena flying in the skies above Antarctica?
I would agree completely that has, I think, been fairly well documented, considering the very low numbers of people that are there for that. But in a very exploratory state of mind or attitude. But yes, I no disagreement there. I think, as I said before, that there is a certain irrefutable attraction to this particular part of our planet that holds a lot of possibilities for all these things to have occurred. But I do know that from the standpoint of what I experienced there over 3 separate operations, the amount of engineering to successfully operate there constantly is staggering. It is amazing, and it's not the least bit hospitable, even at the height of summer, which is our winter in this part of the hemisphere. Summer opposite side, obviously. So it would take extremely high degree of advanced tech to be able to make it work on a consistent basis, that you would not lose capability. Is it possible? Yes. I don't have a really strong impression that it's likely, only from the very limited slice that I had there, but I wouldn't rule it out.
Okay, now I've got some other questions. One is from one of our chat lounge users, Oddball. He said, Commander, what's your favorite UFO and or paranormal case and why?
Don, I'm going to have you repeat that because I had a little bit of a burp on my end.
Absolutely. This is from Oddball in the chat lounge. He said, Commander, what is your favorite UFO and or paranormal case and why?
I got really immersed in the Aztec UFO case because the folks that I have been blessed with having as guests on the show a number of times were absolutely wonderful, and I've been greatly intrigued with what I consider absolute fantastic scholarship that they used to really drive this thing to a well documented, well investigated, journal, and they've spent a great part of their lives doing this, and that would be Scott and Suzanne Ramsey, and I believe it's Dr. Fred Thayer as well in there. And even Stanton Friedman did a forward on one of their books. So Aztec to me holds a lot of clues and a lot of solid evidence, and I think it's a very good blueprint on how we should be investigating the work that goes forward. I will say that one of my favorite couples that are out there is Cheryl Acosta and Linda Miller, and the work they've done just by working the available numbers, the available data that's out there. They've crushed the UFO sightings and data that's been put out there. They've organized it. Cheryl shared with me about 2 weeks ago some of the work that she has done and how she's presenting data that really drives home to not, I would say, the vast majority of us that are here tonight and here at KGRA through the week, but to a number of people you could present that in front of it and say, look, there is a trend here. There's something here that is not dismissible. But if I was to answer Aztec, and I have to say that the other one which is much closer to me because of my friendship with John Burroughs, is the Rendlesham Forest incident. But I am not convinced that is extraterrestrial. I am more convinced with each passing day and each bit of study that particular incident is a piece of man-made technology and some of the crazy physics that we may be involved in, which kind of lashes up nicely with what we talked about earlier.
Okay, now our buddy Ron from ERRT Radio's got something for you. Do you think we're close to the so-called flying car idea?
No. Yes. And we have to expand our definition of flying car. The amalgamation of a terrestrial wheeled vehicle moving across the ground that has some ability to propel itself in the air has been around. There's been a couple very close commercial encounters that have come out. Sadly, one that's not too far from where I live and where I work has recently said that they are stepping back production. They were very close. They actually had gotten certification with the FAA. Their vehicle tended to be a little bit more airplane than vehicle, but they had a side-by-side wheeled vehicle that successfully flew. But it doesn't quite fit that 1960s, 1950s popular mechanics kind of, what we were supposed to be flying in the 80s and 90s. If you also look at what's going on with the multiple rotored, in most cases, automated flight, the electric drive systems that are going on, these vehicles are going to be moving one or two people. They predict in like urban areas as a means of moving from like building to building or from a very small parking lot size pad to another as part of our transportation system, especially in the urban areas. Very strong possibility that is within a couple years. I don't think it's extremely practical for that because what we're doing is that we are harnessing the same aerodynamics and the same physics that we have used since the Wright brothers in the early 1900s, 1903 when they first flew, and everyone before them, from the late 1800s forward to where we are now, harnessing a combustible power to drive something that will create lift. I think the breakthrough comes, and again, lashing up to what we spoke about earlier in the show, when we start to get away from the propulsion systems that we are using now, and we get into a propulsion system that uses magnetic energy, anti-gravity drives, And if you've been looking at any of the recent press in the last 2 weeks, there has been tremendous amount of material that has come out where they have created magnetic fields and been able to manipulate and warp time, space on a very small scale, obviously, but they've been able to make this occur, and they're somewhat to the point that you could say they're almost harnessing that capability. So that is probably where, quote unquote, our flying car comes from, our conveyance that does no longer use wheels, and if it does still move through the air in a traditional method, it's going to use a different power system, a different drive system to control it.
Okay,
and I always will direct people back to Ralph Ring and the work that he did with Mr. Carr.
That is some fascinating stuff, and if that happens, it's my opinion that that's when things are really going to get interesting. Neutron sent in a very interesting question, Deuce, and let me just read it to you and get your response. He says, Commander, have you ever spoken to anyone that broke the rules and flew over the restricted airspace over the mountains at the center of Antarctica, or any restricted airspace as far as that goes?
So, space at Antarctica.
You cut out there for a
reasons,
second, Deuce. Deuce, you cut out.
So I was going to say the restricted airspace in Antarctica comes from a rather horrible crash that we dealt with a few years back, where this overflight by an airliner, it resulted in a horrible loss of life. That's partially the reason. There's some scientifically, at least on the face of it, scientific reasons where certain parts of the airspace are kept clear so that there is minimal intrusion of burnt hydrocarbons entering the atmosphere for scientific studies that are occurring on atmospheric physics and the science, meteorological sciences. So there is a kind of a mystique that's built up about not being able to overfly. One of the reasons that not overflying or being able to fly from one part of Antarctica to the other is it's an extremely large distance, and there isn't always the capability of an airfield on each side of it, and there's not a lot of practical reasons to fly because the rest of the continents don't allow you to get a very good or a productive or an efficient flight path. Now, I have been on C-130s, excuse me, that have flown to these areas where people claim that there is restrictions or not allowed airspace. So there is some activity that goes, especially if that activity is supported by the weather, the mission needs to go forward. But it does lend to a very richly mysterious while recovering things up. Again, I will always default to maybe, but my time there, my experience there, and the demands of what it required to fly and work there, it was pretty understandably why we stayed to the routes that we did, and certain areas just do not get overflights. They don't have a lot of activity. There, I can say the same thing about parts of Russia and Canada, parts of Norway, Finland, where there's not a lot of air activity whatsoever that goes over there because it, again, does not line up with demands or why people would want to go there. Under the constraints of aircraft that use gasoline, fuel, hydrocarbon fuels to be able to successfully fly in those areas. I just don't see I don't see much of a connection to the claims that are there. I could be wrong, but I cannot seem to find that line up with that. And the restricted airspace portion of it is not as, in my experience, not nearly as dramatic as it has been portrayed.
Well, I understand where that question came from. There have been stories that have come out from some fairly well-known UFO personages that claim that there are openings in some of these, far distant areas where unidentified flying objects have been seen entering and leaving and all that type of thing. But, okay. Now,
to be fair, though, Don, let me ask you quickly. How do people know that things are flying in and out of those locations with the absolute so limited number of people that are there?
Whistleblowers.
Okay, but I have whistleblowers all over the place. So I always will put against when you have someone who tells me that they worked out in Area 51 or Tonopah and they talk about the things that they've seen there. I tend to think that has a higher amount of probability because it has additional areas or additional sources to look at, from innocent, somewhat innocuous reports of people seeing things fly by to now, people who spend a great deal of time studying and constantly looking at the airspace around there. It becomes more difficult when we get to Antarctica. I'm not saying that the mythology does not have a basis in truth. And we have some, fairly unique situations that occur because of it being a polar area. We don't have a lot of satellite overflight activity for a large part of the year, even when it's dark and you're using things like SAR, synthetic aperture radar, other types of capabilities that can look into darkness or even the incredibly bad weather. There's just not a lot of activity that require that kind of level of investigation or garners a lot of need for it.
Roger, I copy that.
So that's my somewhat of my frustration with Antarctica. And of course, if you really want to have a good time, you need to talk to the people that are flat earthers and have them explain to you what's going on with Antarctica.
Yeah. Okay. I'll make a note of that. Now, Lauren,
and it completely encircles us, and the North Pole's in the center. It's amazing. They have a great. It's a phenomenal model that they have created.
Lauren has once again thrown both of us a curveball, Deuce. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready. I have all my harnesses on. I am in the command control seat here. Hands on the controls, ready.
Okay. Having both served in the military, what do you, Commander, and Dawn think about the civil unrest and some larger group, and I think we can both figure out who that might be, encouraging this to destabilize and crush the United States of America?
Well, I'm always glad to come on to your show, Don, because it's always shoots and ladders, Candyland, good time, because, it's all easy stuff to talk about. Obviously, I am greatly concerned, and I have spoken about it for the last 2 years, the march to our swaying and coming off the what I consider the only rail that we should be on, which is the basis of our constitutional republic on the United States Constitution. So I am always concerned when I see what I perceive and feel is active measures trying to change what I think is probably the greatest founding document that we've created in a fairly modern times, since the Renaissance. This is a well-founded, well-functioning, but it requires everybody to participate and requires everybody to adhere to the basic belief of our freedoms and liberties to go forward. So I am concerned. I think that there is a very active movement afoot to change that and change the basis of it. And I took a pretty good shining from a number of folks when I called out and thought that the COVID virus had every mark and every turn of being a bioweapon. And doesn't surprise me in the least to see the level of angst that we have gone through in combating this serious pandemic, fighting this particular this attack, this weapon, and moving forward. And I'm equally upset with a number of the ways that we go forward. But the one part that bothers me the most is that we are squelching any kind of dissent, any kind of questioning of what's going on. That is what's driving me to the breaking point off when I look at this, because we just do not seem to be willing to take any discourse if it does not come off the party line. And that, in this particular crowd, I am really know that I am speaking amongst a number of people who look at this, because we have always been on the kind of the fringe, as people put it.
Well, I got to tell you that I have noticed and I'm speaking personally, a distinct lack of adult supervision for at least 15 years. Okay. Now, not that I'm telling you anything, Charlie Deuce, because you've done the same thing. But there was a time in my life when I sacrificed because I believed I was doing what were my responsibilities as an American citizen when I enlisted in the armed forces. My family literally has served this nation going back to the Revolutionary War. And it's something that I'm personally very proud of, and especially during the American Civil War. On my mom's side, my grandfather, which was a very well-known, very highly regarded family, lost sons at not only Antietam, but Shiloh, fighting the faction of the United States that tried to dissolve the Republic. And I'm talking about the Confederacy. Now, part of that process, and this is something, and I probably shouldn't say this, but you know what? I don't care anymore. I truly don't give a damn. Part of that process was to destroy, as it was in the 19th century, referred to as that peculiar institution of slavery. Okay? It was a horrendous, horrific thing that was going on. It had been perpetrated, it had been institutionalized, and it had been loved by the Democrats that primarily broke away from the Republic of the United States. That's simply history, all right? That's just what it is. And if you go all the way back to President Andrew Jackson, who was a Democrat, who stuck it to the Native Americans, which all my life we referred to as Indians, that broke federal treaties with these Native Americans, stole their land, kicked them out, okay? And it was simply a profit motive, all right? Just kicked them out and forced them to march all the way to Oklahoma. Thousands and thousands of these poor people, these oppressed peoples, died en route. And, I know a number of Native Americans out here in California, some of them actually quite well, that refuse to this day, okay, here we are, 2021, to carry a $20 bill in their wallet because it has a picture of Andrew Jackson on it. And I could go on, but this nation right now, and I don't do this very often, I don't go on a political rant, but this nation right now is probably in as dire straits as it has been since the spring right before Fort Sumter, was fired upon. And Most people, I don't think, are even aware of it. For whatever that's worth, Deuce. For whatever it's worth.
I think you bring some extremely, as always, salient points, and I think you speak from the truest position that I share with you. We have the reason that I find that the document is the U.S. Constitution is such an important one is that we have in there the self-correcting process that is going to force you to do the right thing and do it in
only if it's applied. Okay,
Correct.
That's the trick. Applying it. Right now, there is an ideological struggle going on in rooting out of the armed forces, the military, people that are seen as being potential reactionaries or terrorists. You know about that, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Now, that scares the hell out of me, Deuce.
Rightfully so, and it should really upset anyone who is a citizen of this country that is occurring. That because there is no measure. It's the oath to defend the Constitution, foreign and domestic enemies, is the simplest and most straight line, and you can draw that line, and then you can make a determination if someone is not performing those duties the way they're supposed to. But we have diluted that focus to a large number of other activities, a large number of other spaces around it. And this is why we struggle. And I think that one of the casualties that we're facing is a lot of things that we talk about in your show and other great programs here in KGRA is going to suffer. This is just another aspect of disclosure that is going to take the hard hit because we are tangled up and off the rails of where we were very smoothly moving along for a large period of time and lost our dedication or appreciation to it.
Well, it's a very sad state of affairs, and I've often thought if my parents were still here and if my grandfather was still here, what they would make of this. You know, about 10, 15 years ago, one morning, I usually am up, I get out of bed somewhere between 5:30. Sometimes I may sleep in until 5:45. But I stumble out to the kitchen, get myself a cup of coffee, sit down, turn on my cell phone, scan the headlines, and maybe turn on the radio. Well, one morning I did, and there was another, and I don't even recall now what it was, outrageous news story on. And when my wife came out and got a cup of coffee and sat down with me, I started talking to her about it, and suddenly it hit me. I said to her, honey, you know what? I said, this is going to sound crazy, and I'm only half kidding, although I am kidding, but I'm only half kidding. But it is as if we went to bed one night and we woke up in the morning and we had somehow slipped into an alternative dimension. And we both
Absolutely.
laughed about it.
Yep.
But you know what? Maybe we shouldn't have laughed about it. I don't know. It's crazy, but that's what I thought.
It definitely has a Twilight Zone type of feeling to it. I say that with some jest, some humor to maybe relieve, but I think we have ceded our responsibility to being true people and what the founding of our nation grants us, but we have to be responsible. You have freedom to do the right things, and that is what it was probably the greatest part of American exceptionalism to me, that we had all the tools and to do it. And we, for everything that we did wrong, I think we did 3-4-fold right, and we went back and corrected. Maybe not fast enough, not soon enough, and you can never, completely make up for things when you've offended someone else and you've hurt someone else. But you can continue to refine the process, and I feel like that's come to a stop.
The thing that just eats at me is things that happened 100, 150, 200 years ago, okay, and we're judging it with the whacked out, standards of today. Now, this is a question coming from our buddy, Deuce, Chris, okay, you know who that is. And he said, question, do you guys see a pushback now from the so-called silent majority? And is there a trend to question these radical ideas coming from the far left?
I answered Chris in the chat room a little bit. I'm not convinced that it's happening at the rate. I think, yes, a number of people are concerned, are waking up to it, are pushing back, are making demands. I think we're going to come to an apex. We're going to come to a merge here where we're going to see some hair is going to get ruffled up on that. Chris further asked about, when we give up our adherence to law enforcement, to agreeing to a set of rules how we're going to operate, that's when things get really, really unraveled, because then it becomes might and force, and you break into groups, and sadly, that's what we're up against.
And then you have vigilantes. Deuce, I would love to go another hour, but buddy, we are totally out of time. First, let me thank you profusely from taking time out of your very tight schedule. I have, not completely, but I have a pretty good idea of what you're up against. And I want to thank you. This has been a thoroughly enjoyable show. Let me also take this quick opportunity to invite you back when you're available, hopefully sooner than later. And once again, Deuce, this has been great. Thank you. Believe it or not, I got to go see the notary that showed up at the house.
Go for it. And it's been a real pleasure, as always, to share some time with you and your wonderful audience. And I miss everybody at KGRA quite a bit.
Well, buddy, we miss you too. That's it for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We will, good Lord willing, the river don't rise too high, back again next Friday. And in the meantime, keep your eyes pointed up and your ear to the ground just to see what's happening. Thank you all, and good night.